And how's it going, guys? Josh Olufemi here, live from LA, and welcome to Creative Week with Herman Huang on the Olufemi channel. Creative Week is a time when we step in every day for an entire week with one of my friends that's more creative and more talented than myself, and we cover a bunch of really awesome, cool topics. So who is my bro Herman, and what can you expect from this week? Herman, also known as Coffee Liquor on Instagram, is literally one of the coolest digital content creators that I know. I could literally just sit on his Instagram forever and just literally scroll down all of his content, which is a mix of photography, captivating VFX, travel edits, and a lot of other random stuff. This week he's committed to releasing one VFX tutorial a day on the channel, which is crazy. Today we're going to be talking about breaking that fourth wall on Instagram. But first, of course, we're going to talk about Envato Elements. If you're watching this video, you're probably a video editor, and Envato Elements is a video editor's dream. It's a subscription service that gives you unlimited downloads of the most incredible stock footage, like cloud and fog overlays, aerial footage, fire, lightning. They also have incredible VFX packs, Premiere and After Effects templates, sound effects, royalty-free music, and literally anything you could ever want as a video editor. Just by clicking the link below, you will automatically get a free first month. You'll see that coupon for the free first month at the very end after you've finished signing up. And that's it. I use Elements literally in some regard every day. Now I got 2 tickets, one for me and one for you, and we're gonna take a quick flight over to beautiful Vancouver, British Columbia. The air is just so much cleaner here. You can actually download the After Effects project file that Herman will be using in the description below for free. Herman Huang, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Josh. Now let's learn how to break the fourth wall on Instagram, and it's fairly easy to do, and I think it's considered pretty unique because I haven't seen it done a lot on Instagram before. Now, I did this as an intro to an interactive video series on Instagram in which it feels like you're playing a video game, and the controller would kind of move past the caption and feel like it's breaking the fourth wall and moving closer, jumping out of the screen as you're watching the video. So it gives this trippy 3D effect. And this was inspired by videos I saw from an account called 𝐼AmTimGray on Instagram. You should check him out ASAP because he's got a lot of amazing videos that use the application. And he uses a lot of 3D animation and models to actually do this effect and create these amazing posts. Except I don't know how to use 3D to save my life. I got like zero 3D knowledge. So I'm gonna be sharing 2 fairly easy ways with live objects that you can do in After Effects and it'll still look dope. Let's dive into it. Now, before you do anything, first you wanna take a screenshot of an Instagram post. And if you wanna change the description, all you gotta do is go to your old post and do that, take the screenshot, and then change it back. Now, before you shoot anything at all, you want to decide what you actually want to pass through the fourth wall, pass through the caption. Is it gonna be your hand reaching out? Is it going to be a duck? I don't know, like literally anything. You just need to first plan out what you actually want to kind of protrude through the screen. Now for method 1 on how to do this, you're going to need 3 things. 1 is a green screen, 2nd is fishing wire, and 3rd is going to be the object that you want to move past the screen. Now you're going to shoot a shot of you throwing up the camera into the air. Then you're going to shoot a clean plate of a floating camera. And how I'm doing this is by tying fishing wire and attaching it to a C-stand like this. Now because we're shooting our clean plate with the same lighting, it's going to match the entire scene. So you're gonna pull up After Effects, you're gonna go to your footage that you just shot. In this case, I've combined 2 clips into one and I've already colored it just so it's more pleasant to look at. So I've got this clip where I throw the camera up, but I drop the camera out of frame, and then I have the clip of the camera floating in front of the green screen held by fishing wire. So I have that all as one clip right now, but of course we're going to separate it. First I'm going to drop this into a create new composition icon. So I have this, I'm going to chop over here, and now I'm going to key away this background. So I only have a floating camera. And how I do this is by going to the Effects and Presets panel or pulling up Effects Console if you have that plugin, which is completely free. It's by Video Copilot and it does essentially the same thing but saves you a bit more time. I'm going to search up Key Light. And one of the presets that is built into After Effects is Key Light, Key Cleaner, and Advanced Spill Suppressor. And I love using this combo because it gives you the best results when you're keying away green screen. So I'll click that. And then I'm going to set the screen color to whatever screen over here. And then this does an amazing job already. And what I like to do is create a new solid whenever I'm keying things to see if it's actually clean. I'll do this by right clicking, hitting new, solid, and it can be whatever color. And then I place that underneath. And now I can see how clean this key is if I play it through. So I can see there's like a little bit of chatter over here. So I want to make sure that I am keying correctly. Now I'm not going to go too into detail on having a clean key because that's not what this tutorial is about, but just following along, this will give a pretty good result. And you just need to play with the values here to make sure that your key is clean. So I'm gonna raise the screen gain a little bit, just like this. And I believe there is less chatter now if I play it back and forth. So this is looking pretty good. And of course I want to get rid of everything around it. So I'm just going to mask around it by using the pen tool and then going in and just masking away the fishing wire. Now in this case, I'll save some time because I've already done it beforehand and I'm just going to paste that clip. It's the exact same thing, except I have some masks. So I'm going to delete this one underneath. And this is basically what you get once you've masked away the fishing wire and also the stuff around it. So now you have a lovely floating camera. Now in this case, you don't have to do this depending on how stable you have the object. For my case, the camera kind of wiggles around a little bit, which doesn't look really good. It basically looks like it's floating on a wire. What I like to do is at around this point here, I'm going to split the clip and then I'm going to right click, I'm going to hit time, and then I'm going to time stretch the footage. And what I'm basically doing is I'm going to slow-mo the footage a little bit, and this will smooth things out. So if I stretch it by, let's say 300%, hit OK. Of course, if I were to play this through, it's going to stutter because there's no frames in between for it to fill. So one trick that you can do to get it to blend a little bit smoother is by either toggling this frame blending like this and playing through the two options, which is the same thing as if you were to right click this and go into frame blending and go into frame mix. Now, I believe this gives a smoother result. So if I were to play this through, it is now a bit smoother, which is great. Basically, I have this motion where the camera rotates and then it basically kind of stops here and hovers a little bit. What I'm going to do is highlight these two clips. I'm going to hit the shortcuts Control-Shift-C to pre-comp it. I'm going to call it floating camera, just like that. And then I'll trim the clip by hitting the shortcut Alt left bracket. And then I can basically slap this on top of the base footage. Now, I'm going to get rid of the solid underneath because I'm done keying. What's going to happen now is I'm going to hide this floating camera for now. I'm going to hit Control K because that's going to bring up my composition settings. And the reason that I'm doing this is because I'm going to change the dimension to the same dimensions as an Instagram post. So in this case, I know that the width is 1080 and the height is 1350. And this gives me basically like a portrait dimension for when I post on Instagram. And I can scale this base clip by 50 for now, and I can readjust it later. But what I can do now is bring in the screenshot that I took earlier and slap it on top. So this is what I've got. And basically you're going to mask away the portions that aren't needed. So I want to keep this bottom portion because this is what gives the illusion that it looks like the object will be pushed through the captions. So what I'll do is take the rectangle tool. I'm going to draw a rectangle and make sure that it is basically within the edge over here, change the masking type to subtract, and this will give me this bottom caption that I can kind of shift around. Now, before I really determine where everything goes, I'm going to basically just roughly put things where I think it's appropriate. So maybe like this, and then watch where things go. So I think this is not looking too bad. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the floating camera layer, place it on top for now. I'm going to turn the visibility back on so we know what we're working with. And we're going to basically make it look like I'm throwing the camera through the caption. So this is of course going to depend on your object. So you're going to have to play around with it a little bit. So in this case, I'm going to first change the scale to something that I think is appropriate as a final position and just play around with that. So somewhere around here looks pretty good. And then I'm going to keyframe it by hitting the stopwatch on scale. I'm going to hit P to bring up my position because I'm going to be keyframing that as well. I'll hit R to bring up the shortcut for rotation, and I'm going to keyframe that as well. And when I hit the shortcut U, it's going to bring up everything that I keyframed so I can see all of it at once. So if this is basically my final position, so I'm going to turn it on and off the visibility of this layer quite often just so I can see what's happening underneath. But basically this around here should be where the keyframe should kind of end. I'll play around with this later and adjust accordingly, but this is a good starting ground. And to determine the beginning, I'm just going to scrub through and say that my fake camera, which is this floating camera, will start to appear around here. So it looks like it never really leaves my hand. Hit the visibility. I'm going to actually hide this coffee liquor post so I can see how I should match it. And then I'm going to play around with the scale and the position to kind of match roughly where the camera was before I dropped it. So this is what I have so far. Now I'm going to move all of this over to the beginning of the clip. That's because there is this rotation that happens in the beginning. I'm going to get rid of all this just so you can see what's happening. So I have this slight rotation. I'm going to use this with a digital rotation. So I'll undo so that I bring up these keyframes again, so that it gives me a bit of this. And then I'm going to move everything over so it lines up around here. And I'm going to move around the keyframes to make sure that the movement is smooth. Now, of course, this is looking a little bit too sharp in terms of the movement. It looks a little bit robotic. It looks very digital. So I'm going to highlight all of it. I'm going to hit F9 to easy ease the keyframes. I'm going to pull up my graph editor while having one side of my keyframes highlighted. And this will give me this. Zoom in, and then I can pull the handle over, and this will give me slightly smoother motion, but I'm going to exit out and I'm going to move the keyframes and kind of adjust to what I think makes sense. Something like that is a pretty good start. Maybe I'll rotate it just a little bit like this as well. So basically, it looks like I throw the camera and it floats in the air. So we're going to turn the visibility of this coffee liquor post again so I can see where it's going. Now, this is where I start playing around the position. I'm going to also put this underneath the coffee liquor post and then maybe shift this over a little bit, reposition it so it looks like it never leaves my hand, do a few changes. And then at some point, it's going to move past the caption. And that's going to be really up to you. Maybe I'll adjust the rotation so that actually ends up facing up a little bit. And where it's going to end up will depend on you and how much it's going to pass through the caption, and also when it's going to pass through the caption. So in this case, I'm going to have it happen kind of around here-ish. I'm going to split it by hitting the shortcut Control-Shift-D, and this will allow the clip to split exactly where the playhead is. I'm going to move this above the coffee liquor post because this is when it's going to pass through. So now it looks kind of like that. Of course, this is looking a little bit rough, so you'll need to adjust when you think is an appropriate time to pass through, and also the position of when it will be passing through as well. So in this case, I'm going to highlight both of these clips, hit U, and then I'm going to just kind of adjust and play around with the position until I feel like it's right. Now this is what it looks like when I play it through. It's still a little bit rough, so I'm going to need to do some further refinements. Also, it's looking a little bit too crisp while it's in motion. So if you're looking at the camera here, there's a bit of motion blur while I'm moving the camera. So I'm going to want some motion blur on my fade camera as well by highlighting the two clips and then toggling this motion blur. And this will give me this, which looks a little more realistic. And another thing that I wanted to do is to kind of continue to float, I guess, closer to the viewer. And instead of keyframing here, I'm going to create a new null object. I'm going to call it camera position. And I'm going to highlight the two floating camera clips. I'm going to parent it by clicking this parent pick whip, holding it, and then dragging it to the camera position. And basically what that does is it tells what these two, I guess, children layer, what to do according to this parent null object. So if I hit S, I'm going to keyframe this and move it around here. And then I'm going to have it slowly become bigger so it feels like it's coming closer to the camera. And then I'll also hit P to kind of play with the position as well. And there's a lot of just playing around and seeing what feels better to you. In this case, this is looking like it's kind of floating past the caption, which is kind of nice. And once you're happy with the position, in this case, I actually rotated the rotation the other way because I felt like this might feel a little bit better. Just play it through. And this is looking pretty neat so far. Now we're almost done, but we have one final thing that we want to do. And to create a little bit more depth, so it feels like the camera is actually closer to the screen, is you're going to simulate depth of field by creating a new layer, new adjustment layer, and then you're going to call this camera blur because we're going to apply a camera blur to it. So I'm gonna search it up, camera lens blur, and drop it on here. And we're going to position this camera blur layer underneath everything, but on top of this base layer, the footage of me actually throwing. Now we're gonna keyframe this so it feels like we're rack focusing from me as a subject over to the camera. So we're gonna start with 0 for the blur radius. We're gonna hit the stopwatch, and then we're going to hit U for the camera blur so we can see the keyframes. And then we're going to move it over to around here, because this is when I wanna kind of start having it rack focus. And around here is where I kind of want the final to happen. So we're gonna say maybe 25. And if I were to play this through, now it looks like it rack focuses over to the camera as I throw it, furthering the illusion of depth. Now, as I said before, how much this goes through the caption is up to you, and it really depends on the object as well. In this case, it's just a camera, and I wanted to just kind of have the corner peek through, but you can always animate this however you like. Now, one quick tip is that for me, because this object is kind of dark, this camera is black, and then my background is kind of black, which was probably not a smart decision in hindsight. Hindsight's always 20/20, but it also gives me a great opportunity to provide you with this small tip. If I were to duplicate this floating camera layer, and then I were to apply an effect, I'm gonna search up light sweep. So CC light sweep is the effect that I want to apply. And basically this is gonna give me a bit of a edge light. So I'm gonna play with the settings over here. I'm going to change the anchor point somewhere around here, and then whatever you feel like justifies the light, in this case around here, because there's already a bit of a kicker around the camera over here. So I'm just playing with that. You can play with the width and also the intensity. And the reason I'm doing this is to just provide a little bit of more separation between the object and my background, because it's looking a little dark. And then we're going to change the light reception to cutout so that this layer only shows the light. So if I were to solo this and then hit it so it's not transparent, as you can see, it's the outline of the camera. And then I'm just gonna play with the opacity a little bit so it's not too bright. This is with the light sweep. And then if I were to hide this, this is without. So it's a very subtle difference, but in this case, I feel like it'll make the camera stand out a little bit more. And that's a nice little tip that you can apply to future projects if you find yourself in this type of situation. And let's play through from the very beginning to see what you have, because you're done. Now we're going to adjust where it's going to render the in and out points. Hit Control M. It's my shortcut to bring in the render queue. You can render it to whatever your favorite setting is. I usually prefer to queue in AME because it gives me a little more render settings to choose from. But for Instagram, I feel like H.264 is just fine. So once you've rendered it out, you can upload it straight on Instagram and share your dope work. Now, before we continue, if you're liking the video so far, please check out my Instagram page @CoffeeLicker, and you can see what I've been working on. Shoot me a DM if you want to chat, or if you got any questions as well, because I'd be more than happy to reply back. All right, let's continue. Okay, now let's say that you don't have a green screen. You don't want to buy one because you're not going to use it for anything else really, and you don't want to be floating anything either. You just kind of have whatever footage already, and you want to use this effect and post it on your Instagram because it would be a cool promo piece. No problem. So in this case, I've got footage over here. This one, if I play it through, is just me drinking from a mug and then just bringing it closer to camera. So there's no green screen, just me and an object. And I'm gonna place this to create a new composition. I'm gonna do the same thing as before. I'm going to hit Control K to bring up my composition settings. And I'm going to change it to Instagram dimension, which is 1080, 1350, hit OK. Then we're gonna take the screenshot and place it on top, and then you're going to mask it the same way. In this case, I'm just going to go to the composition that I had before and copy and paste this to save some time. I'm going to adjust the scale for this footage to whatever you think is appropriate, and then just play it through, and then you can decide when you want it to happen. So in this case, as you can see, when the cup lowers down this edge, this is where I'm going to have it protrude through the caption. And it's pretty simple to do. Just right click, create a new solid. In this case, we're gonna change it so it's white, and we're going to call it matte because we're gonna use this as a matte to cut out the cup. Hide the visibility of this matte layer first. You're going to highlight it to make sure that you will be masking this solid. Take the pen tool, and then you're going to scrub through the parts where you want it to pass through. So starting from around here, I can start masking, and I'm going to hide the visibility of this screenshot so I can actually see the cup. And I'm going to basically just mask it. I'm going to do it at full resolution so I can see all the lovely pixels. And I'm just going to mask around the cup, and I'm going to keyframe it. So I'm going to hit M to bring my mask path, hit the stopwatch to start keyframing, and then I'm going to either go frame by frame, or one quick tip when you are doing stuff like this is that I'll move forward a few frames and then move my mask and adjust, because After Effects will fill in the frames in between based off that. And I can always readjust a little bit so that I don't have to actually do it frame by frame. And it's a nice little tip to save some time. So we'll just quickly fast forward this. So I've keyframed all my masks, and this will probably be where I start and stop it. So I'll trim it by hitting Alt left bracket, going over here, Alt right bracket, and then I can check the keyframe to see if it's good. I'm going to actually feather it a little bit by hitting F to bring up the mask feather. Maybe 2 for now. I can always adjust it later. And what you're gonna do is take this base clip, this footage of me holding the cup around, all silly and for whatever reason. Actually, I like showing off this cup. It has a nice little deer on it. It was actually a gift from my girlfriend. Shout out to my girlfriend. And I'm gonna duplicate this clip. I'm gonna bring it up so it's right underneath the matte layer. I'm going to toggle switches / modes. I'm gonna go to track matte and change it to Luma matte. And what this is gonna do is if I turn on the visibility of this coffee liquor post layer, I now get this. Now this is really rough for demonstration purposes, but if I play it through, and actually if I were to zoom out a little bit, so it kind of looks like it's small enough as if you're looking at it from a phone, it still pulls off the effect, and all you have to do is just go into the keyframes for your mask path and then readjust accordingly to fix up the details. But this is a really great option if it's after the fact you shot something and you want to reuse the footage as an Instagram promo piece. And there you have it. That is how you break the fourth wall and hit your viewers with an unexpected twist. Super cool. I encourage you to try it out yourself because it's not too hard to do. And I think the only thing you really need to be careful of is whether or not you want to do this with light mode or dark mode. But let's be honest, guys, who's still using light mode? I don't know why I made mine in light mode, because I use dark mode on my phone actually. Anyways, remember to subscribe to Josh Olufemi's YouTube channel down below that red subscribe button if you haven't done so already for some more sick editing tutorials, effects tutorials. He's got breakdowns of K-pop music videos. Like that's my favorite, man. That recent stuff, it's great. He's got dope content. And check out my Instagram as well at Coffee Liquor. And until the next video, guys, back over to you, Josh.
Shout out to Herman, one of the awesome teachers that we have on the channel. Thanks so much for sharing your knowledge with us, and make sure to check out all the videos in this week's creative series. They can all be linked in the description below. And lastly, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and as always, remember to keep it chill.